Life has been throwing a lot of curveballs lately, but regardless of that, there's still so much that I want to try and create. And one thing I want to try my hand at again is mixing together art and Pokemon Go. I had a fun time with it when I did it for GoFest last year, and yeah, maybe making costume-based evolutions was a little far-fetched, but whatever, they're not real Pokemon and I can do what I want. Each of these major Pokemon Go events revolve around biomes, and while I was fortunate enough to go in person to GoFest, that just wasn't feasible for the Unova tour. I'm sure I would be just as critical of their immersive decor there as I was in New York, but I've ranted about that enough and I don't think I need to do it again. Even though there's nothing special about the global event, there are still rotating biomes, and I got to thinking, what if I could either make a Fakemon that fits in with that biome, or take one of the Pokemon spawning in that biome and evolve it to better fit that environment? Maybe I could even get out and explore my own city more and find things around to inspire me in this strange quest to make silly Pokemon art. Originally, I was just gonna wing it based on the name of each biome, but as I was walking around outside, there were things around that kinda inspired me a little bit for each of these designs. Now I'm just doing whatever comes to mind for these, so some of these might be evolutions to existing Pokemon, others are completely new Pokemon designs. It just depends on what sort of inspiration struck me at the time. First up is the Winter biome, aka the Winter Caverns. And while I was walking around, I wasn't expecting to see much, especially not for a cavernous sort of area. Not gonna see that in a city or suburb. And at the time, it just hadn't started to snow yet, so everything was just kind of fall looking. Dried up grass and bushes, trees without leaves, you know. But there was just one tree with a few icicles hanging on them, and an idea came to me. What kind of animal hangs from trees or caves? Bats. And what if there was an ice-type bat Pokemon that camouflaged itself as an icicle? I can work with that. I wanted this to basically just be a bat that's been frozen over. I wanted to draw it in a way that shows that it would look like icicles when it hangs upside down. Its ears and wings are covered in thick ice, and while its nose isn't covered in ice, it also resembles icicles from a distance. If its wings are folded inwards and cover its torso, it would probably just look like regular ice from a distance. I debated on whether I wanted this to have eyes or not. I originally drew where they would be on its face, but in the end, I just decided against using them. First off, it's a bat, and while they do have eyes, obviously, they're known for getting around via echolocation. I wanted to make its ears pretty big to allude to its good hearing, and as I kept sort of detailing the eyes and how much of it I wanted on its face, I sort of got rid of the space where its eyes would be. In my mind now, their eyes do exist, but as this Pokemon ages, they're covered over by more and more ice. They don't rely on their eyesight anyways, so their eyes being covered doesn't bother them. On their body, I decided to give it thick fur. This thing is probably well adjusted to the cold due to, the ice that naturally grows on its body, but thick fluffy fur is just nice for an ice type. The colors were pretty simple. Since I wanted this thing to basically camouflage itself against actual ice, using whites and blues was pretty much the only option. Detailing the ice was probably the hardest part of this design. I definitely had to reference other ice-type Pokemon to try and nail the look and shine that ice has in the Pokemon art style. I'm not completely sure how well I succeeded, but honestly for a first shot at it, I think I did alright. And with that, we have Chiropteris, the camouflage Pokemon, from the scientific order Chiroptera and Ice, an ice and flying type. Chiropteris live primarily in caves and treetops. Their upper bodies are cloaked in a layer of ice. From a distance, they are easily mistaken for normal icicles, especially when their wings are folded inwards. As they age, the ice around their bodies grows thicker. Because of this, their eyes are often hidden by ice and their vision is poor. Their hearing, however, is extraordinary, and they rely heavily on echolocation to maneuver around. Their abilities are Ice Body and Ice Scales. I really love this concept and don't know how we don't have more Pokemon that can blend into their normal surroundings like this. Bats are already cave-dwelling, and to have an ice-type bat that can just hide among icicles and stalactites, I don't know, I just really like the idea. Next up is the design that gave me just the most trouble. to the point that I considered not making it and just finishing the others because, well, they were done and I could just upload the video with 3 designs so I could have a video. But unlike last year where my goal was just to make something every single month for the sake of having something done, this year I want to make things that I'm happy with while also giving myself a little bit of a challenge. This habitat was Spring Soiree, and I had ideas. That's the thing, I had ideas, but translating those ideas from the quick scribbles I made into fleshed out designs was harder than I anticipated. The few things I knew I wanted out of this was I wanted it to involve flowers or plant life, and I wanted it to be fairly feminine. That's it. The original plan was to give it some sort of parasol-shaped flower on its head. I kept thinking about very dolled up socialites with parasols to shield them from the sun. Something felt very spring-like to me about that, and that definitely fit the vibe of a soiree, but like, it wasn't in the cards. Like, I kept sketching out the pose and trying to simplify it, and eventually I tried scrapping it all together for something animal-based because animals are one of my major strengths in art, but nothing. At this point, I thought about just scrapping this all together, but I gave it one last go. I eventually looked up other fake mon that were inspired by vines and kinda just rolled with it. I kept the same basic shape that I was originally going to have, a long, slender feminine body with long appendages. I gave it coiled vines on the head that give off a hat-like shape with a flower bud at the top. The brim of the hat semi-shields the eyes, sort of hiding the top of its face. The rest of its face is hidden by vines wrapped around it. I gave it a high collar and leaves around its waist to look like a skirt. Surprisingly, it was all coming together by this point, and while it's not a perfect design by any means, it's a design I'm relatively happy with. So say hello to Culturine from Couture and Vine, the fashionable Pokemon, a pure grass type. Culturine spends hours fussing over its appearance. They value perfection in their looks. They wrap their vines and leaves around their bodies in various patterns to mimic the look of clothing. The flowers on its body open and close at will. They often use their flowers like umbrellas to shield them from rain or sunlight. They have the abilities Rain Dish and Leaf Guard, and the hidden ability Chlorophyll. Non-animal based designs are absolutely my Achilles heel, and I do need to practice them more, but for what's basically a third attempt at an object mon, I think I did alright. Adding the colors really made this whole design come together, and I ended up liking it way more than I thought I would. Now it's time for a nice and relaxing summer vacation, and what's more reminiscent of summer than going to the beach? Instead of making something completely new, I decided to revamp an old design. If you watch my GoFest Fakemon video from last year, and if you haven't, I recommend it, as over the top as the concept is, I'm pretty proud of what I was able to make here. You might remember this little guy, Bashachu, the Pikachu Evo I made for the poolside cabana habitat. This design was kinda nothing. I based it off of an aquatic rodent, but that was it. I didn't have an idea for the markings, the colors, the anything. So I decided to go back to the drawing board with some ideas that I didn't put into the original design. Like pool floaties. I really like the idea of part of its body having this inflatable pool ring look to it, so I took some inspiration from Diggersby and gave him this smooth ring around his midsection. Maybe it serves as a way to store extra air while it's in the water. The body shape is pretty similar to a Zoomerrill as well, just because I really like that oval-shaped chubby look. I wanted this to be a bulky-looking creature. I turned the stripes on Pikachu's back into something wavy, and the part I'm happiest with are the markings on the feet which look like sandals. Whenever I think about vacations and beaches, I just think about sandals and flip-flops. The colors are mostly the same as the originals, except the cheeks, which I made brighter in color to contrast more with the body since I took away the light face markings. And with that, we have the new and improved Bashachu, the Aqua Mouse Pokemon, an electric and water type. Bashachu are incredibly friendly and playful. They can swim deep in bodies of water with the excess air they store in the rubbery sacs around their torsos. Fishermen are often accompanied by Bashachu as they can catch aquatic prey faster and more accurately than the standard fishing rod. They have the abilities Volt Absorb and Thick Fat, and the hidden ability Swift Swim. This is miles better than the original design. I absolutely adore his chonky look. I'm glad I decided to go with the look of a pool toy and just translate that into a place where it stores air so it can swim longer. It fit the theme of a watery beach vacation much more than the previous version. And last but certainly not least is the Autumn Masquerade, and once again I took some inspiration from something I saw walking around my neighborhood. There are a lot of homes with these styles of lamps around my area, and apologies for not knowing the exact name for it. If you do know, feel free to leave it in the comments below, but when I saw them, they sort of reminded me more of a modern lampant. Instead of lampant being this sort of lantern, instead it's got the long thin body of this lamppost. The fire is a light bulb, and honestly that's kind of it. That was the whole thing. It's lampant, but as a lamppost. You know, when the whole idea was originally coming together, it was, well, at least I thought it was going to be way more interesting to talk about, but like, I kind of just summed up the whole thing in 2 sentences. Regardless, I don't draw object Pokemon much, so this was decent practice, and it was a relatively simple design. So, realistically, I'm just stalling, so there's more time for the speed paint to run, but there's not much else left to say about it, so instead, I'll just introduce it. Here's Lampent, the street lamp Pokemon, a ghost and electric type. This type of lampent dwells in cities and suburbs. Lampposts are common in these areas, so this Pokemon often replaces them and lies in waiting for its prey to come to them. The buzzing emitted from the fluorescent bulb in its body is said to aid in luring in unsuspecting souls. It is believed that the souls of those who succumb to the power of electricity reside in this lampent. It has the abilities Volt Absorb and Illuminate, and the hidden ability Shadow Tag. I don't know, this guy's kinda just cute to me. Like I said, it's Lampent, but more lamp. I just hope that it still reads as Lampent to you guys, and let me know if you want me to make a Litwick and Chandelure along these same veins. For some reason, Lampent was the first thing that came to my mind, so that's what I went with. This is uploaded slightly later than I wanted it to be, so I apologize for that. Regardless, I hope that people enjoyed this, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, and it helps the channel out. And I have mentioned my Ko-fi here before, but now I'm making more of an effort to keep it up to date and upload more and have something specifically for Ko-fi supporters. So while there are not any membership tiers, people who do donate any amount will be able to vote for future video content. There's a poll up right now for what one of my future videos will possibly be. It's open for anyone who's donated even just one time. And for people who would like to donate a little more, you can get some custom art from me. Granted, it'll be a portrait, but it'll still be custom art. I have a blog post that I'm going to link in the description with all that information as well. Just know that any support there will be greatly appreciated. And as usual, you can also find my art on Instagram and Blue Sky. And now I'm off to work on the next project, which, yes, will be the start of the Nightmare Critters Fakemon, so please look forward to that.